Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. As we continue with Part 3, the Northern and Southern Schools from the Adepts in the Eastern Esoteric Tradition by Manly Palmer Hall, Part 2, the Arhats of Buddhism, the Northern and Southern Schools. Early Buddhism in India was an austere school of metaphysical asceticism. The Buddhist monks formed a class apart. They practiced disciplines of meditation and contemplation and were bound together in a confraternity of study and self-imposed poverty. So abstract were the teachings and so severe the rules and regulations that the school had but slight popular appeal. India has had a long and distinguished tradition emphasizing the life of mendicancy and detachment from worldly affairs. Asceticism in India was far older than Buddhism, and while the Buddhist mendicants and monks were honored and respected, even venerated, they were not regarded as too sacred to be approached by the profane. It soon became apparent to the more socially conscious Buddhist leaders that the school would never accomplish its purpose unless it found some way to reach the masses with a doctrine of inspiration and hope. Gradually, a division took place within the Sangha. The stream of Buddhist learning separated into two main branches, one of which flowed southward towards Ceylon, and the other eastward and northward toward China and Tibet. The southern motion of the doctrine came to be called the Hinayana, or the small vehicle, literally, the little cart. This was the old austere part of the Buddhist society. It reserved the benefits of the middle path for those who had taken the obligations of the brotherhood and dedicated themselves completely to the religious life. Only such as renounced entirely the world and all its attachments could hope to attain nirvana. The stream of Buddhism which moved toward northeastern Asia was vitalized by several outstanding teachers who recognized the need for a faith which could offer the rewards of piety and devotion to the laity as well as to the clergy. Gradually, the doctrinal structure was modified, and from these changes and to a degree compromises, the Mahayana school, the great vehicle, came into existence. Although Mahayana Buddhism originated in India, it was in China that the system was perfected, and from China it spread to Korea, Tibet, and Japan. Today, Mahayana Buddhism is the dominant sect, and its doctrines have influenced, to a marked degree, all the regions visited by its early missionaries. As early as the 3rd and 4th centuries AD, the formal center of Buddhism began shifting from India to China, although the Indian schools retained traditional dignity. In the 6th century, the great Buddhist patriarch Bodhidharma, Chinese, Tamil, Japanese, Daruma, left India and established himself in China. Bodhidharma was the 28th patriarch in direct descent from Gautama. He was therefore the unquestioned head of the Mahayana Buddhist society. He brought with him to China the esoteric school of the dhyana, Japanese Zen, a system of advanced meditation upon the unreality of all sentient phenomena. With the arrival in China of Bodhidharma, Buddhism acknowledged the Middle Kingdom as its principal headquarters. Among the basic teachings of the Mahayana school is the firm belief that Buddha himself not only sanctioned the great vehicle, but also revealed its complete metaphysical structure. So profound were his words, however, that only certain bodhisattvas who attended the discourses, but were invisible to mortals, fully comprehended the meaning. After Buddha had preached to the divinities in the 33 heavens and had attained the nirvana, these bodhisattvas assumed the responsibility of revealing the Mahayana to mortals. According to one account, the bodhisattvas Manjusri and Maitreya either took human form or overshadowed consecrated disciples, so that the revelation was made known to the mortal world in the year 116 of the Nirvana. Although this took place prior to the birth of the great Arhat Nagarjuna, he was responsible for the first systematic unfoldment of the Mahayana doctrine. Buddha is said to have stated that several hundred years after his nirvana, his disciple Ananda would be born with the name Enaga and would reveal the great vehicle. One of the characteristics of Mahayana is the gradual deification of the Buddhas and their bodhisattvas. This was certainly not part of the original concept. From their high lotus thrones, these Buddhas could send magic bodies formed by will and yoga down into the sphere of illusion to guide, protect, and save unenlightened mortals. The worship of these eternal Buddhas and prayers for their intercession are a prominent feature of Mahayana teaching. The Mahayana school unfolded through a series of revelations in which the principal doctrine was variously amended and amplified. The real purpose of these modifications was to prove and justify that the doctrines ensured the salvation of all creatures, animate and inanimate, and was therefore a universal philosophy and a universal religion. It went so far as to affirm that non-Buddhists, either those unacquainted with the doctrine or those addicted to contrary beliefs, still shared in the privilege of salvation through the performance of good works alone. Enlightened action motivated by self-discipline guaranteed the ultimate attainment, regardless of the sect or creed to which the individual belonged. Nagarjuna, who flourished in the 2nd century AD, was converted to Buddhism from the older Brahmanic system. His philosophical concepts were similar to those which became so prominent in the Zen sect. The stumbling block was Nagarjuna's postulation of what he called the void as the only reality. To quote the smaller Prajnaparamita Sutra, "In this emptiness there is no form, no perception, no name, no concept, no knowledge. There is no eye, ear, body, mind, no taste, touch objects, no knowledge, no ignorance, no destruction of ignorance, no decay, no death, no Four Noble Truths, no obtaining of nirvana." It would seem that such a definite statement of negation would destroy the whole structure of a religious philosophy. It can only be assumed that Nagarjuna was groping for a statement of absolutism, an unconditioned reality, as opposed to an infinitely conditioned unreality. There is a Chinese account that Nagarjuna concluded that his doctrine was irreconcilable to the teachings of Gautama Buddha. He continued in this misconception until he was initiated by the Nagas, the word means serpents, on the site of the future University of Nalanda. This is one of the most interesting landmarks of the Adept tradition. The serpents were the initiates or Mahatmas of the secret school. They're so symbolized throughout Asia and even in Europe and the Near East. From these Nagas, Nagarjuna learned that what he was publicly preaching had been taught earlier by Buddha, but only secretly. Earlier, Buddha himself had been instructed by the Indian sages about the mysteries of the Sungata, the void of illusion. He had also been informed of the Prajnaparamita, or the knowledge which crosses the river, that is, carries the truth seeker towards the region of the only reality. The teaching of the void shifted the machinery of Buddhist metaphysics from asceticism to devotionalism. The internal experience of the void itself, through the extension of the intuitional powers of the heart alone, remains. Almost certainly the void did not imply absolute emptiness, but a state so abstract and inconceivable that the human mind cannot affirm that it is or that it is not. This is the conclusion of Professor Dasgupta. The subtleties of these early Indian philosophers are difficult to those trained in Western realistic schools. Yet strangely enough, many apparently simple doctrines with large followings depend for their validity upon concepts equally abstruse. The difficulty is unrecognized because acceptance is substituted for thoughtfulness. There was also a marked change in the attitude toward the Arhats, or initiated sages. The older attitude of solitary salvation seemed unnecessarily austere. The initiate teachers gained larger merit by consecrating their wisdom and love to the service of the human necessity. They remained close to their world, choosing to be re-embodied as servants of humanity and rejecting nirvana until all mankind had received the doctrine and attained salvation. There was less emphasis upon the immediate perfection of human consciousness. Many re-embodiments were necessary before all karmic experience was assimilated. In Mahayana, the invisible hierarchy of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats was immediately available through acts of devotion. The great ones did not come in the fullness of their power, but emanations or shadows of them could be known or experienced during the practice of mystical exercises. The magical content increased, and ritualism gained a large measure of importance. Gradually, Buddha, as a person and teacher, retired from the public attention. He was revered as the revealer and honored as a perfectly enlightened teacher. In public and private worship, however, he was usually adored in one of the forms or attributes of the Mahayana pantheon. The Bodhisattvas Manjusri, Avalokiteshvara, and Maitreya were advanced as the principal objects of public veneration. Buddha was the mortal instrument of a doctrine far greater than himself. The celestial beings who embodied the doctrine were therefore entitled to the greater regard. To the student of Buddhist thought, a most interesting problem rises in connection with the Mahayana school in its gradual motion from India to China. This sect, added several metaphysical beings to its pantheon. Foremost among these is the celestial Buddha Amitabha, the Buddha of boundless light. This great being is entirely unknown to the Southern School, nor does his name occur in the ancient writings of Hindu Buddhism. He has not been adapted from any of the old gods of the Vedas, yet we cannot suppose that the venerable masters of the great vehicle formulated this concept of divinity without a profound reason and a vital and significant purpose. Who or what then is Amitabha, and how came he to be master of the cult of the Pure Land? Amitabha is lord of the Western Paradise, Sanskrit Sukhavati. It is this Western Paradise which is the Pure Land. It is a heaven world filled with beauty and goodness. Its gates are open to all who make the great pilgrimage of the law. Even the most humble who performs the good works will find rest and peace in the golden pagoda of the West. Here heavenly musicians chant the harmony of the world. Here saints and sages meditate in gardens of jeweled trees. Here is the end of pain, a glorious habitation of the redeemed, the city of the golden lotus connected with the earth by the slender bridge of compassion. In his discussion with King Kanishka, the venerable Buddhist teacher Asvaghosha explained the mystery of Amitabha thus: Brahma is a personification of the principle of being, but Amitabha is the standard of being. Amitabha is the intrinsic law which, whenever being rises into existence, molds life and develops it, producing uniformity and regularity in both the world of realities and the realm of thought. It is the source of rationality and righteousness, of science and of morality, of philosophy and religion. The old Buddhism of India, the stern Hinayana with its narrow gate, had no teaching about the Western paradise. There was only earth and its illusion, and nirvana, the absolute extinction of all desire. In searching for the solution for this important doctrinal change, several opinions must be considered. One group suggests that the Western paradise is the result of an early contact between Buddhism and Nestorian Christianity. Other scholars are of the opinion that Amitabha's world of heavenly bliss is the inevitable result of the pressure of the popular mind upon Buddhist philosophy. As the system increased to include non-scholars, the majority of the members were incapable of contemplating the abstraction of nirvana. The critics of Buddhism have intimated that the introduction of Amitabha was a deliberate compromise with popular opinion to strengthen the temporal power of the sect. This attitude, however, seems unfair in the light of the profound integrity which has always been associated with Buddhist teachers. Amitabha's paradise is structurally similar to the heavenly world as it occurs in the beliefs of nearly all religious groups. Like Indra's paradise and Odin's Valhalla, it is an intermediate state between the mortal world and the ultimate of perfection contemplated by the initiated. The informed Buddhist recognizes the paradise of the West as the summit of the illusionary sphere. It is not a compromise, but the mere acceptance of certain requirements and limitations of consciousness inevitable to the greater part of humankind. In all esoteric systems, there are two codes, one for the illumined and one for the unenlightened. The average person can improve the quality of his living, refine his emotions, and accept the greater responsibility for his actions. These are the virtues of the laity. The initiated must practice these virtues also, but must go beyond into the great ocean of the doctrine. The paradise of Amitabha represents the sphere of karmic compensation for these who obey and live those simple teachings which are suitable for the average man. It is a state of consciousness which he can comprehend and which becomes his reward, because to him it is understandable as a reward. The Western paradise existed always as a potential in Buddhism, but it was unnecessary to emphasize the concept until the faith was enlarged to include those incapable of the supreme achievement. The regenerated personal self, enthroned in the heart and impelling the life to the performance of right action, is Amitabha. It is the person refined and enlightened, the human perfected into the God, but beyond the God is space, the eternal one. The gods are attributes of space, and the personal consciousness of the human being is an aspect of his eternal space consciousness. All mystical religions lead to the God consciousness or the attainment of a godlike state of self. Esoteric religions go beyond this point toward the absorption of the self and the self-will into the universal and the universal will. Amitabha's paradise is the heaven of virtue, but nirvana is the state of perfect virtue, plus perfect wisdom, plus perfect renunciation. By inward meditation, the great Buddhas conceived from within themselves the mystery of the great vehicle. This great vehicle is the Dharma itself. It is the teaching of the good law by which all mankind may attain liberation. Even the life locked within a grain of sand is known within the consciousness of the Supreme One. The love of Amitabha embraces all things within the vastness of the heart doctrine. The compassion of Amitabha draws all life along the noble eightfold path to final identity with space, spirit, and the great white mountains. These are the mountains of the north, the thrones of the eternal Buddhas, and far beyond their western boundaries lies Amitabha's paradise. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.